Madison Brown explodes at Robyn in shocking confrontation. Family left stunned. The warm Arizona sun filtered through the lace curtains of the Brown family home, casting a golden glow across the rustic living room. Laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen, where a few members of the family were preparing for the weekly family dinner, an old tradition that was meant to bring everyone together, no matter how far they drifted apart. But tonight, something was off. Madison Brown sat quietly on the edge of the couch, her fingers tapping nervously against her jeans. Her normally calm demeanor was strained, and her eyes flickered toward the front door every few seconds. Her siblings, fully engrossed in small talk and setting the table, hadn't noticed the storm quietly brewing within her. She had come home with a purpose, and that purpose was named Robyn. The boiling point. For years, Madison had watched her family twist and turn around Robyn's decisions. The favoritism, the manipulation, the subtle jabs cloaked in sweetness. It had all been too much for too long. Madison, always the one to hold her tongue, to keep the peace, had finally reached her breaking point. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about watching her siblings get emotionally tossed around like chess pieces. About seeing her mother, Christine, fade into the background. About losing her voice in a family where everyone had grown afraid to speak their truth, especially when it came to Robyn. The door creaked open. Robyn entered like a storm in stilettos, cool, poised, and just a little too perfect. Her carefully curled hair framed a face that wore a permanent expression of martyrdom, as if she were the one burdened most by the family's fractures. She gave her usual tight-lipped smile as she greeted everyone, arms slightly outstretched in performative affection. "Hi, everyone," she said sweetly. "So good to see you all." Madison stood up, heart pounding. "Robyn," she said, her voice startlingly calm at first. Robyn turned, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Oh, Madison. How have you been, sweetheart?" But the syrup in her tone did nothing to soothe Madison. It only ignited the fire. The explosion. "I've been good," Madison replied tightly. "Actually, I've been better than good, because I haven't had to be around you." The room froze. Even the clatter of silverware stopped. Robyn blinked, thrown. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Madison stepped forward. "I've kept quiet for years, Robyn. I've watched you manipulate our dad. I've seen how you isolate him from us, how you make everything about you." "Madison." Janelle's voice came sharp from the other side of the room, a warning. But Madison raised her hand. "No, I'm not doing this anymore. You always pretend to be the victim while you play puppet master behind the scenes. You pit Dad against everyone else. You smile to our faces while stabbing us in the back. You act like you're the only one who matters." Robyn's face turned pale. "That's not fair." "You want fair?" Madison scoffed. "Was it fair when you pushed Mom out of the family? When you made sure Dad spent holidays with you and ignored the rest of us? When you told him he needed to focus on his real family?" Gasps rippled through the room. Christine, who had been quietly folding napkins in the corner, looked up, tears in her eyes. "I never said that," Robyn whispered. "Don't lie," Madison snapped. "You said it. You made sure we all felt like outsiders in our own home. And we let you. But I'm done letting you rewrite history." Kody Brown entered the room just as the tension thickened beyond repair. "What's going on?" he asked, looking from Madison to Robyn. Madison turned to him, anger and heartbreak mixing in her voice. "Dad, for once, I need you to listen without taking her side." Kody looked genuinely confused. "Her side?" "Yes, her side," Madison repeated. "The side you always choose. No matter what any of us say, you defend her. She's been turning you against us for years, and you just let it happen. Kody opened his mouth to speak, but Robyn cut in. "She's attacking me, Kody. I just got here, and she's accusing me of things I never did." "You did," Madison growled. "You just never had the guts to say it out loud. But your actions were clear." The room spun in silence, every sibling watching, frozen. Some wide-eyed, others quietly nodding. For the first time, someone had said what many of them had felt but had been too afraid to voice. A mother's voice. Christine stood slowly, placing a hand on Madison's shoulder. Her voice was calm, but full of steel. "She's right." Robyn turned toward her. "Christine." "No," Christine interrupted. "You don't get to play innocent. I've lived it. I felt the cold shoulder, the exclusion. You tried to erase me from this family, and you almost succeeded. But I see now I wasn't the only one." Tears welled in Robyn's eyes. But whether they were from guilt or simply the shock of losing control of the narrative, no one could tell. "I never meant to." "Doesn't matter," Madison said. "Intentions don't excuse damage." The turning point. The confrontation lasted only minutes, but it echoed like a thunderclap through the Brown family. One by one, the siblings began to speak up. Mike Kelty, Wendlin, even Hunter, usually quiet, added his voice. Each had their own story, their own moment where they'd felt like second-class members of a family that was supposed to be united. Robyn stood at the center, drowning in a tidal wave of suppressed truth. For once, Kody didn't rush to her side. Instead, he stood frozen, clearly shaken by the unified voice of his children. "Maybe I messed up," he said finally, his voice hoarse. "Maybe I didn't see what was happening. Or maybe I didn't want to." Silence. Then Madison exhaled. Her chest finally loosened after years of keeping it all inside. The aftermath. The dinner that night was quiet, solemn. Robyn left early, claiming a headache. Her departure met with silence rather than comfort. Kody didn't follow her. He stayed, lingering in the corner, listening as his children spoke more freely than they had in years. Something had broken, but in that breaking, there was a strange sense of healing. Madison sat next to her mother, their hands entwined on the table. Her voice was raw, but her heart was lighter. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she murmured. "I just couldn't stay quiet anymore." Christine smiled gently. "Sometimes truth hurts, but silence hurts more." The beginning of change. In the weeks that followed, the family dynamic shifted. Slowly, awkwardly, but with real effort. Conversations happened. Apologies were offered. Not all wounds healed overnight, but the air was clearer. And as for Madison, she had finally found her voice, and with it, the strength to demand the love, honesty, and respect she and her siblings had long been denied. The explosion wasn't just an end. It was the beginning of something the Brown family hadn't felt in a long time: fault lines and forgiveness. The morning after the confrontation, the Brown household was unusually quiet. Not the comfortable, peaceful kind of quiet, but the heavy silence that follows a storm. The kind that settles in when truths have been spoken and no one quite knows what to do with them. Madison sat on the back porch with a mug of lukewarm coffee, watching the sun crawl up the horizon. It should have felt like a victory. She had said what needed to be said. But now there was only exhaustion and uncertainty. Behind her, the sliding glass door creaked open. Christine stepped outside, a blanket around her shoulders, holding 2 more steaming mugs. "I figured you hadn't slept either," she said gently, offering Madison a fresh cup. Madison took it with a tired smile. "Thanks, Mom." They sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the breeze speak for them. "You were brave last night," Christine finally said. "You didn't just speak for yourself. You spoke for all of us." Madison stared into the coffee. I didn't plan on doing it like that. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Christine nodded. Truth is like that. Sometimes it stays buried for years. But when it finally comes up, it comes out like a flood. Kody's reckoning, Kody didn't come down for breakfast. In fact, he stayed holed up in the guest room for most of the day, doors shut, blinds drawn. It wasn't like him to avoid a family crisis. Usually, he'd be out trying to spin the situation, to smooth over the edges, and bring everyone back under his control. But this time, there was no script he could pull from. No manipulation he could lean on. He had heard the truth in his daughter's voice, in Christine's, in the eyes of all his children, and he couldn't run from it anymore. That afternoon, he finally emerged, his hair tousled and face worn. He found Madison alone in the living room, flipping through old family photo albums. She looked up warily. "I owe you an apology," Kody said, standing stiffly in the doorway. Madison raised an eyebrow. For what exactly? He sighed. For not seeing it. For not listening. For believing I could manage this family by choosing sides. She didn't say anything, just waited. "I got comfortable," he continued. "Robyn gave me a place where I didn't have to be challenged, and I let that comfort blind me." Madison's voice was low. "We were never supposed to be comfortable. We were supposed to be a family." Kody nodded slowly. "I know, and I want to fix it." Robyn's isolation. Robyn hadn't spoken to anyone since she left the house the night before. She'd driven back to her own home in tears, calling no one, answering no texts. For the first time in years, her grip on the family narrative was gone. She stared at her phone screen, rereading a single message from Kody. "I need to be with all my kids right now. Please give us space." It stung more than she wanted to admit. Not because she didn't care, though many accused her of that, but because deep down, she truly believed she had been trying to hold the family together. Just her version of it. One that had quietly excluded everyone who didn't fit her. Alone in the silence of her home, Robyn was forced to ask herself questions she'd spent years avoiding. The family meeting. 2 days later, Christine called a family meeting. Everyone was invited, including Robyn. No one knew if she would come. They gathered in the large open living room of Janelle's home, where so many birthdays and holidays had been celebrated in years past. The air was tense but filled with a strange sense of purpose. Janelle stood at the front. "I know we're all exhausted, hurt, but I think this is the first time we've all been honest with each other. That matters." One by one, the siblings spoke, some angry, some sad, but all heartfelt. They shared stories, fears, memories. They talked about how they'd seen their parents drift, how they'd felt invisible in their own home. Then the door opened. Robyn walked in slowly, clutching a tissue, her eyes rimmed with red. No makeup, no bravado, just vulnerability. "I came because I need to listen," she said softly, "even if it hurts." No one responded at first, but Janelle gestured for her to sit. Madison didn't look at her, not right away, but she listened. And when Robyn finally said, "I didn't realize how much damage I caused until you all said it out loud," Madison looked up. Robyn's voice broke. "I'm sorry, truly." Steps toward healing. Forgiveness didn't come quickly or easily, but something had shifted. Over the following weeks, the family began to rebuild, not back to what they were, but into something new, something more honest. Weekly therapy sessions started, some joint, some private. Kody committed to rotating his time equally, not out of obligation, but intention. Christine, stronger than ever, stayed involved, not for Kody, but for the children. And the children began to find their voices too. Madison became a quiet leader among them. The one who had dared to break the silence had also become the one who helped them find peace. She and Robyn didn't become best friends, but they found a place of mutual respect. A fragile truce built on accountability. Epilogue: A new foundation. 6 months later, the Browns gathered again, this time for a celebration. A reunion, not orchestrated by tradition, but by choice. As they laughed around a fire pit under the desert stars, the scars of the past still lingered, but they no longer defined them. Madison sat beside her mother, a soft smile on her lips as she watched her siblings share stories. Christine leaned over and whispered, "You changed this family, you know." Madison nodded. "We all did. We just needed someone to strike the match." And in that moment, surrounded by imperfect healing and real connection, the Browns began a new chapter, not as a perfect family, but as an honest one.